You're listening to Word Slinger Podcast, episode 27, Life and Love Survival with Francesca Hogi.
This episode of the Word Slinger Podcast is brought to you by Happy Pants Books. Are you a coach, consultant, or keynote speaker who needs to publish or perish? Get your ideas out of your head and onto the page. Visit happypantsbooks.com.
It's the Word Slinger Podcast, where story matters. Build your brand, write your book, redefine who you are. It's all about the story here. What's yours? Now, here's the guy who invented Pants Optional, Kevin Tomlinson, the Word Slinger.
Word Slinger.
Hey everybody, this is Kevin Tomlinson, the Word Slinger. Every week you and I have this little conversation, and every week I just can't help feeling so much gratitude for you. So thanks for showing up, thanks for listening, thanks for everything you do, man. You're cool. You and I, we're cool. We should hang out. And we do on this show every week, right? So this week I'm talking to someone that do you ever just come across someone and you just click? Like suddenly you just discover that this person you never knew before, you never had any contact with them, you never had any relationship to them. Suddenly you realize, you know what, you and I, we're alike. We have something in common. We share something. There's a bond here. And suddenly you're just cool. I mean, you're just, conversation flows. There's no awkwardness. There's no hesitation. And the two of you, you're just, you're in love, man. I mean, I've got lots of friends like that, actually, that I've met over the years. I don't know. I attract people like that. It's very odd. It drives my wife crazy because she has trouble sometimes connecting with some people, and she has her close group of friends, but making new friends is difficult for her because there are all kinds of issues. I'm not going to analyze my wife on the air. She's going to murder me for what I've said already anyway. But who can help with that is my guest, and that is Francesca Hogi, She is a life and love coach, and we'll get into her whole story there. It's interesting. She was on. I don't want to spoil it. I want to let you discover something very cool about her by listening to the episode. But she's one of these people, I will say, that as soon as the two of us started talking, I knew I had a friend. I mean, I love her because she's very dynamic. She's very energetic. She's so much fun to be around. And, she does coaching. And I think people would be crazy to not run to her for coaching. I think she sort of, I'm swallowing a lot. I'm doing that a lot lately. But she just sort of exudes this, kind of friendly wisdom. Like, I think talking to her for this interview really, really bumped up my spirit. It really helped me kind of figure out a few things. So you're going to love that interview. Before we get into it, I wanted to announce one thing that's very cool. I now finally have pointed, I gave up on what I was trying to do. I was trying to build something, and I think, something else you need to realize about yourself is that when something isn't working, it's probably not meant to be part of your life, or not meant to be part of your brand, or not meant to be part of your story. So if you're having a ton of difficulty, I'm not saying give up. I'm saying look at what's coming up against you, and if you're the biggest obstacle, then it's probably because some part of you says, this isn't me. This isn't for me. I need to do something else. And all that is build up, but here's the thing. I finally pointed web. I'm going to do that a million times. I finally pointed wordslingerpodcast.com to my landing page on my site. And the sort of existential crisis that surrounded that whole thing was this. I have this belief, I have this philosophy about building a brand and splitting a brand. And the thing is, every time you create sort of a new silo for yourself, you got to start over. You got to start the work all over again. You got to build a new mailing list. You got to get out there and promote that business. You got to, describe it. And then if it's you, primarily you, that's running that whole thing, now you've got more than one thing you got to use to describe yourself in public. It's very difficult, very difficult, and also counterproductive. I recently spoke to a couple of coaches and consultants that I'm kind of trading services with. Sort of that sharpening the saw idea, from 7 Habits. So we work together, we talk to each other about our brands, and I give them help and they give me help. And one of the things that came up was, it's okay to have your brand and put everything else under it, because you don't have to reinvent yourself every single time you start a new project that way. You get to use the same mailing list. You get to use the same, all the same verbiage. The tone of everything can be the same. Now, if you want to start something separate, fine. That is absolutely fine. But I think that if your goal is to build a brand around yourself, you're an author, and you want to write fiction and nonfiction. You can have those as two silos under your brand. You're a public speaker, and you want to also write books, and you want to also provide coaching services. Put all that on your site as different pages. Delineate a little, silo a little within your own brand. But I think it's counterproductive to go out and spread yourself too thin. So once I kind of hit on that idea, I realized, the Wordslinger podcast is a part of me. It's just me. It's me having some we time with you, which is something I used to say in my video blog. But it's me talking to you in my voice. It's me doing this work. And to separate it out meant sort of splitting me. So Wordslinger Podcast now points directly to the kevintomlinson.com/podcast page. So it's just a shortcut for you. And it helps define the brand a little more. So go check that out, wordslingerpodcast.com. And while you're there, why don't you leave me a voicemail? There is first of all, what I want to talk to people about these days, like I'm in the business now of helping people kind of build their authority, right? And my primary tool for that is writing. I mean, I love using writing in my own life. I love shaping my story with it, and it's a very powerful tool for doing that. I had an interview with Marianne Cantwell in which we sort of both agreed on this concept of, if you don't know what your voice is or what your brand is or what your story is, you can tell that to yourself by writing about it. So go check that out. There's lots of resources on the site that are real handy. Click the resources button there, but you can leave me a voicemail straight from the page at wordslingerpodcast.com and ask me anything you want about authority, about writing, about coaching and consulting or whatever, and I'm here to help. I really do want to help. So you can also call me at 281-809-WORD. That's 281-809-9673, where you can leave me a voicemail, and I'll play your questions on the air and answer them for you. So, and then one more thing before we start. I want to thank everybody who went and checked out the Patreon campaign and has been lending some financial support to the show. This show is something that makes me very happy. And I think it's very productive, and I think it can help a lot of people. And every dollar that you commit to the show each month means extending the reach of that and helping more people. I love that. I'm so grateful to you for that. I'm so glad that you are on board with that mission. So thank you for the people who have chipped in. And if you'd like to be a part of that, you can go to kevintomlinson.com. Let's back up. wordslingerpodcast.com. And click on the Fund Me button up in the upper right corner. Actually, at wordslingerpodcast.com, you'll see the logo for Patreon, and that'll take you straight to the Patreon campaign. It's an easy, no commitment kind of deal. You can pledge basically $1 a month if that's all you want to throw in, or as much as you want. And so that helps me in kind of covering some of the overhead of the show. It gives me what it does is it helps me slice off the time that I have to spend on the show. It helps me put aside other smaller projects so that I can focus on producing something really high quality for you guys. So much appreciation in advance. Thank you so much for being a part of that. And I can't tell you how stupid grateful I am for it. So now I've kept you from the real jewel here long enough. Francesca Hogi is an amazing person. I love her. I absolutely love her. She's beautiful. She's so energetic. She's so pure. It's so cool. So go check. Don't go anywhere. Stay right here and check this out. I give you, ladies and gentlemen, Francesca Hogi. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Word Slinger podcast. And today I have somebody who is really interesting. I've been checking her out online, and I actually realized sort of suddenly that I actually knew who she was before I'd ever encountered her online. And that is Francesca Hogi, who is a life and love coach. You can check her out at francescahogi.com, and I'll have the link to that in the show notes. And she is on Twitter as Dear Franny. You may know her from Survivor. She was on 2 different seasons, and she's got kind of an interesting story about that.
So I'm very famous.
You are very famous. Yes. You know what? People are famous for a lot worse. So I think you came out okay. Why don't you want to talk a little bit about Survivor and that experience first, and then we can talk about your work. Or you don't have to.
Sure.
Don't let me put you on the spot.
It's fine. No, it's fine. Well, it's so funny because, I don't generally tell people that I was on Survivor.
Yeah.
But they always kind of find out eventually, right? It doesn't take too long. And then, everyone always has a million questions. Oh, well, what happened? And I'm like, oh, you've never watched it? I won. If you've never watched it, I won. End of discussion.
Yes. For those of you listening, I also won Survivor.
So unfortunately, the internet exists and people can find out what really happened. But I recently wrote a blog about my experience on Survivor and some lessons that I learned, some life lessons that came out of that experience for Huffington Post. Mm-hmm. And it's great because now I can just point people to that. I'm like, here, just read this. But for you, Kevin, I'm going to talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
I was on Survivor. I was on Survivor, as you know, the first time I was on was, I think, 2011. And it taped in 2010, in the summer of 2010. And I was the first person voted out. So I have that very dubious distinction. That's the first person voted out is usually voted out because they're really weak, really annoying, and I don't know, maybe I'm those things, but those weren't the reasons I was voted out. Right. And it was just quite a debacle of a tribal council and all of that stuff. So I just made a bit more of an impression than people typically do who were voted out first. I got more airtime, really, just because the producers liked me, basically. So people felt, there were a lot of fans of the show who felt like, oh, you got such a raw deal, and it was so unfair, and it was so hard to watch, and all that stuff. So they asked me back for a second season, and I'm a glutton for punishment, so I went. And the exact same thing happened the second time. So that's life for you.
Yeah. You know what? There are people who would kill to get on the show the first time, so I think you did okay.
Well, thank you, Kevin. You're very sweet to say that. It's all good. Everything works out the way it's meant to work out. So I'm fine with it all.
And it seems like, and reading that Huffington Post article, which, by the way, will be linked to in the show notes, but it seems like you took a lot out of that experience that, kind of feeds some of what you do now, right?
Yeah, no, it definitely, I mean, it was, it's just like pretty much everything else in life that, there are always lessons to be learned from every experience. And I think, especially after the second time I played Survivor, I was like, okay, universe, like what's going on here? Like, I'm not just gonna have this be an experience that just repeated itself, and I'm not taking anything new from it. So I really had to dig deep and make some changes in my life after that. And all those changes were for the better. So I'm super grateful.
I can't remember where I read it, but I read somewhere once that if the universe tells you something twice, then it means you should listen.
Yes. Yes. And I agree with that. I totally agree with that. So yeah, so rather than just say, because I think a lot of people are like, well, it's okay, and you're a lawyer, and you've got all these people in your life who love you, so who cares? And I'm like, well, that's all of that is true, and it wasn't like, really shattered on a personal level, but I was more just like, what's going on here? Like there's definitely something to be gleaned from this experience. So, yeah, that's what I aimed to discover.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll move on from Survivor. So, but you took out of that some experiences that inform kind of what you do now, at least a little. So you're a life and love coach. So tell me a little about what that means and what you do.
Sure. So so really, really quickly tell you this random story. So
Okay, I like random stories.
So I describe myself as like, I've been like boy crazy since I was 9 years old. Like I started early, and and I and I definitely, like, by the time I was in junior high school, when kind of all my other friends were starting to get boy crazy, I just became really fascinated by the whole boy girl love dating thing. And I had this I had this boyfriend, my first boyfriend in 8th grade, and we were totally in love with each other. And we were like, we're going to grow up and get married. Like we were like, it was like this very intense, like 8th grade relationship. And that, and so I kind of became this sort of like senior statesman among my friends because I had this like very serious boyfriend. Yeah. And so I kind of say that like my love coaching career began, in junior high school. But, wow. But anyway, but I just, throughout the years, I just always, I was more interested in relationships and dating than the average person. And, I used to have a dating advice blog that I started years ago just for fun because I liked to give people, advice, and people were always asking me advice about their love life. So it was just something that I did, and I didn't think anything of it. And then after my second season of Survivor, the following 4th of July, I was at this barbecue, and I started talking to this woman who I'd never met before, and she mentioned that there was this black male matchmaker named Paul Brunson, and she followed him on Twitter. And I was like, there's a black male matchmaker? That's so interesting. I'm going to follow him on Twitter. So I took my phone out and I followed him on Twitter right on the spot. And just over the next 8 to 9 months, I was just, really reading his tweets, reading his articles, and I was like, wow, I like this guy, I like what he has to say. And I wound up tweeting at him. He followed me back, and we started this sort of Twitter friendship. And then he posted this link to this interview he'd done about what it takes to be a successful matchmaker. And I was like, and so it was a video interview, and I watched this video, and I was like, oh, I could totally do that. Oh my God, yes, I can do this. And he was a former finance guy. He had an MBA, and he left that all to start this matchmaking business. And I was like, he's a real person. He's like me. I can do this. And so I basically, based on that, decided that I would just look into being a matchmaker. And there's a matchmaking institute in New York, and Paul Brunson tweeted, which I didn't know at the time, but Paul Brunson tweeted that he was going to be speaking at the Matchmaking Institute's annual conference. And I was like, there's a Matchmaking Institute? They have an annual conference? I have to go to this. So I went, and I really just fell in love with the industry, and I got my first matchmaking client a week later.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy because things move fast when you really just go for it. I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to do this. And I went on Facebook and I said to everyone, I am becoming a matchmaker. And everyone was like, what? Aren't you a lawyer? What are you talking about? But I had met this woman at the Matchmaking Institute conference who was actually a dating coach. So she didn't do matchmaking, but there are some people that come that are just in the industry that aren't specifically matchmakers. And I talked to her for 5 minutes, but I made somewhat of an impression on her. So when somebody contacted her about looking for a matchmaker, she referred that person to me, and that person wound up becoming my first client. So that's how life happens. Oh, so anyway, so when I started my business, and it's been less than 2 years, but it'll be 2 years this spring. I started as a matchmaker, and that's what I was doing solely at the beginning. But then I quickly came to see that people, don't always have the problem that they think they have. Yeah. And, it's not always just oh, I need to meet more people, or I need to meet the right person. It's kind of like, well, actually, you need to be the right person. You need to figure out what your, destructive patterns are, and, what is really important to you on a fundamental level and not just superficially. And so I wound up coaching really by default, because I had to coach people in order to be successful with them, or, in order for them to be successful. And I just really fell in love with coaching. And so that's just what I do now. And I now don't just do the love coaching. I also do life coaching for people who want to make big changes in their life and don't know how, or need some help with that.
So, okay, life coaching is, I know lots of coaches, and usually they kind of, home in on one specific thing. Like, I'm a coach. I do a lot of author coaching. I do a lot of, and I do some lifestyle coaching. But how do you be a life coach? Like, what's the end result that people are after?
So it depends, but it is specific. So for some people, so a lot of the people that come to me for coaching are people who are interested in making a career transition. So
Okay.
A lot of people who are interested in starting their own businesses. That's the primary thing that people come to me for the life coaching. So it's really just really helping them just create a roadmap for doing that, really identifying, because a lot of people also, they're like, I'm in this job. I know it's a good job, but I just feel like there's something more that I'm meant to do. I don't want to work for other people anymore. I'm not passionate about this industry. They just have this feeling that something is missing, and which I can totally relate to, because that's how I felt. I went to a really good law school, and I left law school and I got a job at a really good firm in New York, and I had this life and this 6-figure salary, and people were like, "Oh, this is so amazing." And I was like, "Is it though?" It's like, I know that I'm, successful by one definition of the word success, but it just wasn't something that spoke to me on a, just on a deeper level. And it just wasn't the life that I wanted for myself. So,
Right.
And so I think because that is my journey, those are the people that I tend to attract for coaching, who are in that same position.
Yeah. Is that kind of the like attracts like kind of idea? People are drawn to you because they know.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny. And so many people, like so many lawyers, because, there are like way too many lawyers, and a lot of people who really shouldn't have gone to law school in the first place. And I put myself in that category, because it's one of those things, law school. I mean, I always say, like, medical school, by the time you even apply to medical school, just the process of like getting into medical school is such a weeding out process. And you really you have a good understanding of what it is to practice medicine. Like, you understand what it is to be a doctor. But whereas with the law, people don't really understand what it is to be a lawyer. Like, you kind of have this TV idea of the law, but but the actual, you're not going to be, not everybody is going to be like prosecuting murder cases, and not that everybody wants to do that, but know what I mean? It's not the day-to-day experience of being a lawyer is not something that most people understand.
Yeah.
And so people are like, "Oh, you're smart. You should go to law school. You could do anything with a law degree." And that's what happens to a lot of people. And then they're like, "Oh, crap.
Yeah.
Now I've invested all of this time and all this money, and this is not what I want to do with my life."
It's kind of like an MBA. A lot of people pushed me to try to get an MBA, and I almost did. And I know people with MBAs that they don't really use them.
Yeah, I mean, it's I call that living life by default. Like, just take that status quo path that, seems safe, seems like the responsible thing to do. But really, it takes effort, right? It takes effort to get into business school. It takes effort to get into law school, but it's an effort because you feel like this is a safe path, and it's not an effort that's coming from like, this is a drive of something that I really feel passionate about doing.
Yeah. Do you feel that the law degree helped your career at all, though?
Well, I think, now it's definitely helping my career, because there are so many people who are in similar positions, whether they're lawyers or they just have some kind of,
Yeah.
professional job that
Hmm.
relate to me. So, but no, I mean, I think, I don't really regret anything that I've done because regret is such a useless emotion.
Right.
So, I actually enjoyed the experience of being in law school. Being a lawyer is not the worst thing in the world that you can do. There are many worse jobs,
Yeah.
right?
I can give you a
So it's
list.
not like, yeah, exactly, right. So I don't want to be too like, woe is me, I was so miserable. I mean, whatever. Like I was fine, but I just felt like I was meant for something more. But it definitely helps. Like I think me in my confidence level. I mean, just things like, when when I decided to start my business, like I, formed the business myself. And not that anybody can't, I mean, lots of people can do that. You don't have to be a lawyer to do that. But a lot of people are just intimidated by
Yeah.
things like that, where I'm just like, I got a trademark. I'm not an IP lawyer, but I just figured it out and I just did it on my own. Whereas a lot
Yeah.
of people would feel kind of paralyzed by things like that. So it helps me in business, and I think it helps my relatability for certain people.
Yeah, I could see where it would come in handy to at least have it. So that said, I mean, did you start all this with a plan B? Like you said, if this doesn't work out, I'm going to go back to law, or did you have something else in mind?
Um, I Yeah, I mean, listen, like the law is something that I can always, and since I started my business, there have been times where I've taken like a short-term legal gig just to, help me.
Yeah.
So it's not like uh, yes, if my whole business fell apart tomorrow, which it's not going to,
No.
just for the record, universe. I mean, I don't really think about having a plan B. That's not a primary thought in my mind, but yeah, I mean, I'm never gonna, that is always an option for me
Yeah.
if I needed to do
So
that.
it's not so
But
much a plan B as things are never going to get to the point where you can't do something.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and but the thing is, I mean, I've always felt that way. I mean, I even before I started this current business that I have, I mean, when I first graduated from law school, I went and I worked at a big firm in New York for 4 years, and then I was like, okay, not going to do this anymore, and I left, and I moved from New York to LA, and I started a production company, actually with a friend of mine from law school, um, and I did that for a few years, and during that time, I was like, I didn't want anything to do with the law.
Yeah.
So I was like, we were doing like, we were independent producers, so we made no money, but I was doing like wardrobe styling. I was like a casting assistant. I mean, I was like hustling. Like I had
Yeah.
like all these different jobs. I was actually just remembering yesterday that I worked on some Black Eyed Peas video, and I was like the playback person who like played the track for them to sing over. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they'd be like, "Hey, stop! All right, go back to this spot." And I just remember thinking, like, last night I was reminiscing. It was like, I did that. That was like an incredibly stressful job,
Yeah.
actually. So, yeah. So I've always just been a person who's, just really resourceful, and I'll always find a way.
Yeah.
So even if it's not, law, I'll figure something out.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's you are a type. You are you're that very positive person that everyone wants to know you because you're energetic and you have a great bubbly personality. But you also I can feel the sort of positive vibes coming off of you. You're resourceful, so that's good.
Oh, go on, Kevin. Go on.
Oh no, I say that to all my guests. So. Uh,
I'm very comfortable with flattery, just so you know.
Yes, me too. And I'm not so bad at fishing for it either. But so what do you think are some of the challenges of a coaching business like this, or what have been
I,
some of the challenges?
yeah, well, I think probably the biggest challenge is really articulating your story.
Hmm.
Because people are likely to hire you if they if they feel like they have some understanding of who you are and they like who you are,
Yeah.
right? And in order to convey that, you have to like give them a reason. You can't just say, "Hey, just trust me, it's going to be fine. Give
Yeah.
me your money," and and just tell me all this personal information. Tell me your hopes and your dreams and your fears and your challenges, and it's going to be fine. Just trust me. So I think for me, that was probably the biggest problem at first, was just not. I mean, it's just like like Kevin, like, yourself, right? You know who you are. So you're not like walking around explaining yourself to people all the time, right? Because you're
Right.
like, this is who I am. Like, you'll see, like, hang around me long enough and you'll see. And I think that was kind of my attitude towards my business. Like, I didn't feel like, oh, I have to really deliberately tell people who I am, because they'll just kind of learn who I am by dealing with me. But that's like totally backwards way of thinking about it. It's like,
Right.
so that was probably the biggest challenge. And just, it definitely takes, it takes some fortitude to put yourself out there and say, okay, this is who I am, this is what I do, and this is how I can help you. And I think that, at first I was I was like, I would take like one step forward, but then I would kind of take a step back, because it's kind of like, well, who are you to tell me, what's best for my life? And, I think all coaches, well, I know a lot of coaches, and I know that this is a common thing, especially at the beginning, where you're kind of like, well, there are lots of great things in my life, but it's not 100% together. So
Right.
should I be a life coach?
We call that the fraud
then,
police.
yeah, exactly. You have that that voice, like, wait, are you really? I'm not sure about this, Francesca. But there's this great coach named Hillary Rubin who she said this to me, and I was like, oh, this was such an aha moment. It's like, it's not that you have to have all the answers. You just, first of all, have to be one step ahead of your clients, like just one step. And if you're one step ahead of somebody, then you can help them. And, the great thing about about coaching, and I'm sure, this is your experience because you're a coach too, it's like people just need a mirror. And, as a coach, it's not about having all the answers. I don't have all the answers about your life and your desires. Like, only you can answer those questions. My job is just to ask the right questions, to draw that out of you, and then to hold up that mirror so you can see, like, okay, I'm at point A, I want to get to point B, and this is where my actions are taking me on that right path, and this is where my actions are keeping me right where I am, or circling me, back to where I started from. So when I was kind of able to really understand that was the role of a coach, now I'm like, oh, I could coach anybody. I definitely I think that I can, if I talk to you, I can give you some insight. I'm not saying it's going to be mind blowing, but there'll be something that I can see that you can't see, just because you're just too much in your own world,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a big fan of coaching. I want to coach for every single area of my life. So
same here. I feel like and I consult with a lot of people, so I have like a nice little mastermind group going. But it seems like there are always areas of my life where I'm like, I need to find somebody who has done that better than me.
Yeah, I mean, and it's totally. I mean, it's like, CEOs of Fortune 500 companies have coaches. Like, and it's not because they don't know business. It's because it's just how you get to that next level.
Yeah, you just need a sounding board mostly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what sort of work do you do with the client? Like, how does the actual coaching work?
Well, we start out with really at the beginning. There's a lot of introspection for the client. So, I mean, I start out by giving my clients like a pretty lengthy questionnaire. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not even that it's so lengthy. It's just that the questions take a lot of thought. So, and it's everything from, really discerning what your values are, just discerning just how do you want to feel in your life, right? Like because I believe in coaching, it's like, not only do we want to get you from point A to point B, but we want to get you there in a way that's in alignment with how you want to feel, right? And so So one of the big things that I do with my clients, especially in the whole dating, area, is because a lot of people are very frustrated with their love lives, especially if they're at the point of hiring a coach or a matchmaker. And a lot of people have really lost the joy and the fun of dating and meeting people.
Yeah.
And so they're like, okay, here we go. Like, okay, I'll go on this date. Like, okay, like, tell me what to do. And I'm like, okay, this is not, like, you're not in a space, like, if you're in that heavy, negative, dread-filled energy, like, you're unlikely to have a very good result. You're definitely not going to attract somebody who isn't also miserable, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, what can we do to make this experience fun? How do you want to feel throughout this process? And what can we do to cultivate those feelings? So I'm a big believer of that, and as a strategy to help you move forward. Because if you're just moving forward with like dread, it's going to be challenging. So they answer these questions, and we really create this, this blueprint, this plan of like, okay, this is where you are, this is where you want to get. And so we, and together we agree, because it's not up to me. I'm not, telling people what to do. I'm making suggestions, right? That's part of my job. But, we have to come to some agreement. And I like to say to my clients, well, have you considered, are you able to consider? That's my pushy way of letting them think it's their idea. So that's kind of the process. And then, I meet with my clients, and I say meet, like on the phone or Skype.
Yeah.
Or I do meet some of my clients in person if we're in the same city, but my clients are all over. So that's not always possible. But we have at least a check-in every week for the time working together. So, if we set goals, like if like, okay, like you're going to take this number of steps in this next week, then when we talk next week, there's that accountability there. Yeah, exactly. So, and it's like, and that accountability factor is huge for people, because they're like, oh, crap, I got to do this thing because Francesca is going to bug me if I don't. Because I have to talk to her in 2 days, and she's going to, give me a hard time. So, yeah. So that's kind of how I work.
So are most of your clients remote?
Yes, most of my clients are remote.
Like all over the world, or all over just the U.S.?
Yeah. They are mostly in the U.S., but I have had some clients overseas as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Very interesting. So that brings up a good question. How do you promote this coaching business? Like, what kind of marketing do you do?
That's a great question, Kevin.
That's what we do here.
I know. Well, the marketing is something that has not come naturally to me.
Yeah.
Though there are certain things that have come naturally to me that I think now I'm like, oh, I could see how this actually, now that I step back, I'm like, oh, this is all kind of coming together really well. And, like social media, like I'm very active on Facebook. And for the past like year and a half, I've just asked these daily questions on Facebook. And I started doing it. I didn't even know why I was doing it, but I just did it. And now I have a lot of engagement, with people on Facebook. And I have people like that I barely even know, like, will write to me and they'll be like, I don't always answer your questions, but I want to let you know, like, I find them so thought provoking. Like, I think about them all the time. I'm always answering them in my head, like all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, wow. Like people are paying attention to what I have to say. That's so cool. And so I kind of like turned around one day and realized like, oh, I have all these people who like pay attention to what I say on Facebook. Maybe I should tell them about my business.
There's an interesting idea. Yeah.
Here's an interesting idea. So once I started, coming out of the closet more about like what my actual business was, I've gotten a lot of referrals that way, which has been great. I've been doing this regular guest appearance on the Today Show for the past few months, and that's been great because that has been driving people to me, which has been good. Huffington Post has been good. I've started to dabble in ads, so like some Facebook ads, some Twitter ads, some Google ads. So I've kind of, I wanted everything to be super organic and just like, oh, like it's just going to grow. It's going to be fine. Like
Yeah, yeah,
it's just the word will spread. And that has happened to a certain extent, but I also realized like, okay, I have to be much more intentional about this.
yeah.
Which is what I would tell my client if somebody came to me and they were like, yeah, I have this business, but I'm just going to let it grow. I'd be like, are you crazy? Let's come up with a plan. So sometimes I have to coach myself, and that's what I'm doing now about marketing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's you know what, I have years of marketing experience and background. You know who my worst marketing client is me.
Yes. Yeah. So what do you like? What do you think? What is your resistance about marketing?
It's the same stuff you're talking about. Like I fell right in immediately with, hey, I'm building a lot of great stuff. I'm doing a lot of great content. I know a lot of people, so this is just going to be a slam dunk. People are just going to
Yeah.
come beg to give me their money. And yeah, so same challenges that you have, really.
Yeah.
What it comes down to is it's marketing is that sort of necessary evil, and I outsource some of it now, which makes my life a little easier, but I'm still 99% of my marketing department, so probably
Yeah.
much like you.
Yes, totally. Yeah. So I'm sure you're familiar with Marie Forleo.
I am, yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
I actually really like what she has to say about marketing. And she actually helped me to get my head around the importance of marketing because, you know, if you have a product, you have a service that is valuable
Yeah,
and can help people and bring value to their lives, like you marketing to them is not selfish. Like you marketing to them is actually doing them a service because you're letting them know about something that is
yeah,
going to help them, right? Like
yeah.
if we were selling, something really crappy. I'm trying to watch my language here.
Appreciate that.
Um, then then yeah, it would be sleazy to try to sell something to people that we don't believe in. But that what you do is valuable, and I know that what I do is valuable, and I know that my heart is in the right place, and I know that I want to give people as much value as I can, and so they have to know that I exist for
Right.
me to help them.
Yeah.
So
So how do you
that's how I.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, I was just saying that's how I just like kind of have gotten my head around marketing and like, oh, okay, like this is actually something. Not only is it okay to do it, but I should be doing it.
Right. That's the right attitude. I mean, that's exactly what it is. And I like what you're saying too. And I'm inferring a little from what you're saying that, you're sort of, you owe it to your potential customer, your potential audience to do the marketing so that they're aware that you're there and that you have that help for them, right?
Yeah, and just that help, and not that they're necessarily all going to hire me, of
No,
course, but just even for them to start
that's their
thinking,
choice, but
that's their choice. But even and I say to people like when I talk to potential clients, I swear like I believe this. I'm like whether you work with me or not, like I just want you to do something.
yeah,
Like I just and as I tell them, I'm like just like I'll give people ideas. I'm like just like start doing this, take this step, like just start look into like because I just want people. I see so many people that have so much potential and, in the relationship side and seeing so many people who have like, they have such a deep desire to be in a certain kind of relationship
yeah,
and, they're just so stuck where they are. And, and it kind of just breaks my heart, and so I'm like, don't like, even if you don't hire me, seriously, like
yeah. Read this
just do
book.
something. Yeah, like exactly. Like I recommend books to people. I'm like, just try getting on an online dating site and giving that a try. Like just, try changing your social circle. Try reconnecting with 3 people that, you haven't spoken to in 5 years and just getting yourself in the flow of expanding your world, expanding who you're encountering, just try making eye contact with strangers, try striking up conversation and next time you're in line at Starbucks, like just these there it doesn't always have to be like this huge dramatic 180 change, but just like these incremental changes can have a really big impact in people's lives. And I just want everybody to do something.
Yeah. So, how do you personally overcome the whole fraud police thing? Like, How do you get yourself past roadblocks to your own success?
I think that for me, well, one of the things, especially, and this is part of like crafting, my story and articulating my story is like, I'm very clear about like, in my mind, I don't know if I'm as clear in my messaging about this as I should be, but I'm very clear in my mind about who is a good client for me and who I can really help.
Yeah.
And I know, and I actually have, there are people who've contacted me about hiring me who I've actually like referred to other people because I know that I can't help them.
Right.
And I don't have any interest in working with somebody that I can't help because not only is that incredibly stressful,
Yeah.
it's so not worth the money. Like it's so not worth the money, right? Like
Right.
like the short term gain of that money is so not worth the long term stress and also just like the harm to your reputation because if you're, that's not good for your business, your coaching business. If you're working with a bunch of people who are like, yes, she sucks. She did not help me at all.
Yeah.
so, I'm just really clear on that. So I think that helps me not feel like a fraud because I know, I know that I'm not a fraud.
Yeah.
And I think if I were like, so, you know, like there's this dating coach that I know who, well, I don't want to say too much about her because I don't want to say like too much personally identifying things. But anyway, the point is that she's really built her business on the strength of the story that she has about how she met her husband.
Yeah.
And that is like 100% her narrative. And it's very compelling because you're like, wow, like this is a story about a woman and she was older and it seemed hopeless and and she made this decision and she went through this process and she met this man and that's amazing, right? And that's how she's built her career. And she's very successful. And I found out recently that she and her husband, they got divorced after like 2 years of being married. And in her messaging, she doesn't mention that part, right? And I'm not saying that makes her any less of a great coach. And I mean, I think she is a great coach actually. But for me, like I think that would be really challenging. For me to like say, okay, I'm going to teach you how to find your forever partner. This is how I did it, but you didn't find your forever partner, and I'm not even saying that I consider it to be a failure that they got divorced. Because I don't think that at all actually, but just given that that's like her narrative and that's how she markets herself. I see that and I'm like, and I know her heart is in the right place and she's helped a lot of people. I don't want to I'm not trying to disparage her, but just for me personally, that would be a hard story for me to stick with. Like, I think for me, if I were her, I think, and I'm not her, but I think I would say, okay, this was my point A. I wanted to meet this person. I met this person. The relationship ended, but now this is where I'm going from here. And I can, so it's like, I don't know, something about new beginnings or, you can manifest the love of your life. And even if that doesn't last, you can start over and do more and whatever. I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling, but all of this is just to say that like, I have a story that is authentic to me and I don't feel like a fraud.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's important. It's an important self message, but I mean, it's also, it's a given. Okay. So, so what makes a good client? You said you have some clients you don't really want to work with. What makes a good client?
A good client is a person who is, they're open and they have a willingness to try new things. They have a willingness to be introspective. They have a willingness to look at things differently. And I'm sure you've encountered people like this. Some people, they aren't really looking for change. They're really just looking for somebody to reinforce whatever their current story is.
Yeah.
And that's like, it's like, I mean, I'm not just like a yes man. I'm not just gonna that's not helpful to you. Honestly, it isn't. So that's what it is. It's just that resistance to change. And some people just don't have, a good ability, and it could just be me, a fit with me, because it's a personality thing, and I don't expect everybody to, think I'm the most fun person to talk to, and I don't think everybody else is the most fun person to talk to. I just think there just has to be that fit.
Yeah, and the saying is that some babies just like to sit in their own dirty diapers, and sometimes you just gotta let them.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, some people are very, very, well, we're all attached to our stories, right?
Yeah.
We're all attached to the way that we, view ourselves. But some people are more willing to like challenge that story.
Yeah.
Than others. And some people are just not willing to challenge it,
Yeah.
They're just not. I mean, it's like, like the people who they just want to complain, and you get, like those people that, they're called ask holes.
Yeah.
Like they just want to ask, they want advice. This is a problem. And they are brilliant at coming up with excuses as to why every solution is not going to work.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
Like, every single solution is never going to work. It's like, all right, well then, good talk.
Yeah. Try talking to people who come to you wanting to be an author, but refusing to write.
Yeah.
Like, well,
you deal with that all the time.
Yes, and it's interesting. And I'll usually at that point pitch ghostwriting to them, and they don't like the price tag. So,
Oh.
so who are?
Well,
Go ahead.
I'm
I'm sorry.
interested in that. I'm interested in ghostwriting.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I don't have a ghostwriter.
Okay.
But somebody was, because I was just basically saying, I was like, oh, it's just so much, like writing the copy for my website and writing my newsletters, writing my blogs.
Yeah.
So they're like, well, why don't you hire somebody to do that for you? And I was like, it just seems like weird to me. I'm like, but I'm saying it's me. How could it not be me? But, so how do you so if somebody comes to you and has that like resistance to ghostwriting, like what would you say about that?
So, the resistance, how to meet the resistance as far as like, it's not me writing it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I guess maybe the kind of ghostwriting you do is a little bit different, but like people were saying that like one person was saying that I should hire somebody to like write my newsletters for me and to write my blog posts for me and write my website copy,
someone to do the content marketing side for your business, right? And they can do that. There's a lot of ways to do that, and that are still authentic. Part of it can be working. And here, I'm going to let you know some inside. Here's your free coaching session. You ready?
Awesome.
So
that's all I wanted.
You could do.
That's why I'm here.
This podcast, by the way, is kind of like my way of interacting with people and getting ideas from them. And, it's sort of, I record all this and put it out there for everyone to listen to, but I listen to it as well. So it's like my personal kind of coaching thing, right? But you could, if you need to ghostwrite content, but you don't have the time to sit and write, you could just hire somebody, very, very inexpensive writers. And if you need some, let me know, that you talk to, over Skype or whatever. And, the whole conversation can be recorded, and then that can be boiled down into a post. And that's content that's coming from you. It's authentic. It's what you believe. It's what you think. It's your verbiage most of the time. But the writer's just there to facilitate. So the same thing can happen with ghostwriting books. I have my company has a process built around that idea of, a series of interviews that get transcribed and then worked into a book. And it's a tried and true method, of course, and it sounds too simple because it is, and people overthink it. But if you're worried that what you're writing isn't going to be authentic to your voice or authentic to, it's somehow a lie. I mean, you'll quickly get past that as you realize that, first of all, you approve everything that goes out. So it's not like you don't see it. You know what it is. No one's posting on your behalf without you ever knowing a word of it. But it's also coming from you. So the gruesome example I'll tell people is, just imagine that for some reason not putting this out in the universe, but let's just imagine that you didn't have use of your arms. Let's look at guys like Stephen Hawking. He pecks those things out one character at a time, but he doesn't do all the writing himself. He sometimes kind of outsources his brain to other people, and some of the writing gets done on his behalf. So the ideas are there, and other people help him flesh it out because he's incapable of writing the way we think of it. So, yeah. So I didn't mean to get off on tangents, and I don't want to turn this into a whole podcast about ghostwriting, but you and I can talk about that offline.
Okay, sorry. I asked the question. I was
No, and that's fine. And I love talking about it, so I will go off for a while if I don't catch myself. So, and you need a book. So we'll
I'm
wrap
working
up.
on it. I actually do write. I do write.
Yeah,
I write
you
all
probably,
the time.
most people don't realize that they probably already have everything it would take to put a book together. You probably have enough blog posts. You probably have enough emails. There's enough content out there that you could pull together at least the foundation of the book and just fill in the gaps.
Right. I'm starting from scratch, though.
Yeah,
But that's
everyone
a good idea,
does. Everyone does. Okay, so I want to wrap up soon because I don't want to take up any more of your time, but I wanted to ask you about your influences. Like, who are your biggest influences in the business?
In the coaching business?
Yeah, or in anything. I mean, in life even. Who's influenced you most, and how's that impact your work?
Well, this is going to sound really corny, but my mother, my
That's
mom,
not
Joyce
corny.
Hogi.
That's not corny. What's her name? What was her name again?
Miss Joyce. Her name is Joyce Hogi,
Okay.
my mother. I feel like I always say I'm like anything that's like good about me, like it's thanks to Joyce Hogi, and also my dad, my Ed Hogi. But my dad passed away a number of years ago. But yeah, I think for my mom specifically, and my dad is was like an incredibly kind, social, talkative person who never met a stranger.
Yeah.
And it used to be really embarrassing when I was a kid because my dad was the kind of person, like if we were sitting at a restaurant, he would start a conversation with the people at the next table and we're like, stop talking to them. Like they're not here to talk to us. And he's like, what? We're having a conversation. It's like, oh God. But anyway, I would totally turn into my father at this point in my life. But my mother, my mom, she's just, my mother is the kind of mom that, she's very wise and she's very nurturing but she won't tell you what to do.
Yeah.
Like, which has actually been frustrating in my life at sometimes because I'm like, just tell me what to do. And she's like, I can't tell you, Francesca, you have to decide for yourself. And I'd be like, which would sometimes be really annoying. But actually, I think that now I see, the wisdom of that, right? Like, just telling people what to do is really not the solution. It's really, they need to come to that understanding and that decision making on their own. So, so my mom was my first coach. And
all right.
So she's definitely, and she continues to coach me and influence me. But, there are a lot of great coaches out there. I actually have a coach myself who I adore, and her name is Maru Ibachella. It's Iabachella. She's got a hard to pronounce last name. And she's great. Hillary Rubin, who I mentioned before, I actually did a coaching program with her. She has a program called The Art of Becoming a Coach. And it doesn't result in a certification because she doesn't associate with she's not affiliated with a certifying body or whatever.
Yeah.
But it was a really amazing program. And she's also somebody that I've just known personally for years and just seen her transition. She started as a yoga teacher and transitioned to a life and business coach now. And she's doing great things in the world. I'm a huge fan of Tony Robbins. I love Tony Robbins.
Who doesn't love Tony Robbins?
I love Tony Robbins. I watch his TED Talk just for fun sometimes. I'll be like, I got 15 minutes. I'm going to watch Tony's TED Talk.
Oh my gosh, I do that. Oh, so ridiculous.
It's so ridiculous. I love him. I went to unleash the power within,
Yeah.
and had a really great experience. And I totally follow him. I'm a big fan of his. I think he's brilliant. So yeah, I don't know, but there are lots of coaches. I mean, I think, and that's the thing. I mean, they're probably there's so much wisdom to
Yeah.
be gleaned from so many people. Um, so Paul Brunson, who actually is the reason that I'm even in this business, and I guess I probably did not mention that he actually mentored me, and he wound up also giving me a job with his agency. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah, and I still actually moonlight with his agency. So, I do some coaching for some of his clients, and I used to do some matchmaking also for some of his clients. And he's been a huge influence on me and mentored me, and I owe him a lot. So yeah, there are lots of people.
Yeah. There usually are. Usually when you're in this kind of authority business, you've got a lot of really great influences. And I love
Sure.
hearing familiar names. Tony Robbins is definitely one of the ones that, that I follow. So, okay. All right. Well, I don't want to soak up any more of your time. And I'm really grateful you're here. Thank you so much for sharing
Oh,
your
thank
story.
you
And
so much for having me. This was great.
yeah, I love talking to people who, I love talking to anybody. I'm like your father. I'll talk to anybody.
Never been a stranger.
Never met a stranger. My wife, it drives her crazy. My wife and I, by the way, we met on eHarmony, which I
Oh,
know has its kind of detractors and whatever.
yeah.
But we actually, it was a very good match for us. So
Nice.
that's a pretty good deal. So
Well, you are not the only married couple I know who've met on eHarmony.
oh really?
Yeah.
Okay. We meet people all the time who are like, yeah, we tried it. I tried it, and it was they
Yeah.
matched me with like fire jugglers or something, and
Yeah. I don't generally recommend eHarmony for people,
yeah.
but it's like anything. I mean, people are always like, what's the best site to go on? And I'm like, that's kind of like saying, like, what's the best bar to go to meet somebody? It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, you can meet somebody anywhere, and, you can meet and that includes any online site. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, there are just other factors to consider, really. But that's awesome. I love that. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that with
Oh
me,
no,
Kevin.
no problem. I was good. I wanted to tell you that early in the call, and I kind of wanted to. At first, I was going to say something about eHarmony, just kind of gauge your response and see what you. Kind of
You're like,
ransack you.
gotcha. I met my wife on eHarmony.
Ambush. So no, I wouldn't do that to you. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. We're going to wrap up. If anyone has questions that they want to fire your way, do you mind if I forward things your way?
I do not. I don't
Okay.
mind at all.
Okay.
I love hearing from people.
All
I am
right.
his daughter, after all.
Excellent. All right. So you can, if you have a question for Francesca, you can go on my website at kevintumlinson.com/podcast, where you can leave a voicemail straight from the computer if you want, or call 281-809-WORD, which is 281-809-9673, and or send me an email, and I'll pass anything you want along to Francesca, and you can ask me anything you want too. So thanks a lot, Francesca, for being on the show, and
Happy
I'm going to
Kevin.
follow up with you too. If you ever want to talk about books, if you're still having trouble, you really need one.
I know.
Everyone
It's
needs
happening.
one.
I'm actually working on my book proposal right now.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Have you got a
yes, I'm
publisher
working.
lined up, or you?
I don't have a publisher lined up. I have an agent who is waiting for my proposal.
Oh, okay.
So I'll see how that goes. See what kind of feedback I get from
Sweet.
her when it's done.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
So-
thank you, and thanks to everybody, and we will see you next week. So that was Francesca Hogi, and ever since that interview, she and I have been in fairly frequent contact. We'll email each other, and she's passed along some potential guests for the show. Actually, not just potential guests, some actual guests for the show. People who are I've already actually talked to in some cases, and people who are scheduled to come later. So you're gonna love all of them too. So she is what a giving person. I mean, she's just got a complete spirit of giving about her, right? I mean, I don't know if you get that sense from listening to the episode, but that's the feeling I've gotten since day one. So absolutely love talking to Francesca, and she, the the events surrounding her run on Survivor are kind of amusing, but they don't define her, which is something I really enjoyed about meeting her. Like I think that some people there's always the sort of quarterback who didn't quite make the touchdown that they were, or whatever. I don't know anything about football, so maybe I just flipped all of that. But there's always that football player who didn't quite live up to the legend or something, or the Super Bowl didn't quite pan out the way they wanted to, or whatever. And there's a kind of tragic story that follows them like the rest of their life, and it becomes the definition of them. And that's really no way to define your life. I mean, define your life by the almost hads and the could have beens. That's just no way to live. So much better to pick up and create something and establish yourself. Go out and make yourself an authority on something and establish a business around that idea. Much, much better. I mean, look at what you're able to do because of the experiences you've had and the growth that you've had in your life. So that's probably why I enjoyed talking to Francesca, because she and I have sort of the same philosophy on that kind of thing. So if you are looking to kind of move on from some past transgressions or failures or something, that's a bad way to start this. I honestly, what I like to do is I like to help people figure out what it is that they're really an expert on, really an authority on, and build a business around that. Primarily, I like working with people who want to use writing in their business. I do a lot of, my consulting centers, almost entirely on writing at this point. I talk to a lot of people about a lot of things, but it always comes back to writing. It always comes back to the books. It always comes back to getting them to blog more and getting them to, just use writing as a tool for shaping their business and career. So, what are you going to do? I'm a word slinger. That's what I do. It's built right into the title. So if you'd like to talk to me or Francesca, actually, you can talk to Francesca too. She's a fantastic coach. She and I have kind of bantered back and forth a little, and I really appreciate, what she's done, what she's doing for me. And she's very special. So you can contact her if you go to her website at francescahogi.com. You can also ping her on Twitter at Dear Franny, and she'll respond. She's very open to talking to you, and she's got a great coaching program. So go check that out. I'm gonna try to scratch up some of the Huffington Post articles. I found them earlier, and then they have slipped. The links have slipped through my grasp, so I'm gonna go back and refine those. I'll put that stuff in the show notes for you to click through to. And yeah, that's it. Francesca Hogi, she's fantastic. I love the fact that we were able to have that chat, and I'm looking forward to having a lot more chats with her in the future. And if you need a little help with your business and you want to use writing to improve your business, why don't you give me a call? Go check me out. If you go to wordslingerpodcast.com now, you can click on the services button up top, and my consulting page is there. So that's got rates. It's got the kind of things I help people with. But don't be afraid to just approach me either, because whether or not coaching is something that's in your budget, you can talk to me. I'm pretty open about pretty much everything. And you can also check out the blog where I write about this stuff literally every day now. I started a practice. Now I'm stealing a page out of Seth Godin's book in some respects, because he blogs every single day. And at first I was intimidated by that idea, because, that's a lot of writing and I got books to write. But the thing is, I can do these real short bursts real short bursts of writing, and I can do images and I can do things like that. So if you're looking to kind of build up your voice and brand and discover who you are, I recommend doing kind of the same thing, because it's really helped me focus on, who I am as a entrepreneur and the kind of audience that I want to reach and the kind of material I want to create. And let's face it, I'm a content creator. That's just what I am. I'm a writer first. That's been the through line of my whole career, and I'm just all about creating. So coming up on future episodes of the podcast, we got some really interesting people that I think you're going to love. Let me get through a short list here. I think I announced a few, but we got Joseph Michael coming up, I think next week. In fact, I can verify that. You know what? Why should I make you wait? I will let you know exactly. Working files. There we are. Yes, Joseph Michael coming up next week. And if you're unfamiliar with the name, he also is known as the Scrivener Coach. And Scrivener is the go-to resource for me as a writer these days. I spent most of my career using Microsoft Word. And before that, there were, several different word processors and typewriters, and but Microsoft Word has been a pretty consistent presence in my life. Even now, I find that I have to kind of fall back to it every now and then, depending on who I'm working with. But my writing tool of choice these days is Scrivener because of the power to organize that it gives you, the power to kind of break things up into smaller chunks makes it a lot easier and a lot simpler to do the work. But I will admit that Scrivener has a very high learning curve. So that's why I first discovered, that's how I first discovered Joseph Michael, who is the Scrivener coach, and his program Learn Scrivener Fast. And so I talked to him next week about not only Scrivener, but also just sort of the ins and outs of having an online business, having an internet marketing business, and the sort of training business that he's in, the course building. So you're going to want to check that out. It was a great interview. Joseph Michael's another fantastic, positive energy guy I love talking to. He's been great. So go check that out. If you're interested in Scrivener and Learn Scrivener Fast, go check out my resources page. Go to wordslingerpodcast.com and click on resources in the menu, and you can get Scrivener right from that page. It generally runs about $40, depending on which platform you choose. It's going to be in the $40 range. Much cheaper than, Microsoft Word or whatever, especially if you're paying monthly. This is a one-time cost. And the Learn Scrivener Fast course is there, and you're going to pay less than $200 for that. And I will tell you, it's worth every penny. Every penny. I recommend it to anyone who wants to, not only those who want to be authors and want to write for a living, but even those who just want to be better about, blogging and organizing information that written information or images. I mean, the Scrivener is so powerful that you can drop in video, you can drop in photos, you can basically clip from the web. You can actually have actual web pages clipped into your folders there, and you keep all your research together so that it helps you write faster. You can do little side by sides. There's a corkboard for index cards, so you can move things around. It's just the most powerful writing tool you're ever going to encounter. If you've been in this business at all for 5 minutes or more, you've heard of Scrivener, or you should have heard of Scrivener by now. So very powerful. I recommend it. Go pick it up. Full disclosure, that resource page is full of stuff that I get affiliate dollars for. So every time you buy something, it doesn't cost you any more than it would anywhere else. It's just that I get the financial benefit of having referred you. So appreciate you supporting me in that, and go click on some buttons, man. So that's it for this week. I really appreciate everyone being here again and again and again. It's fantastic to do this show. I'm absolutely in love with this show and with what it's doing for the world. I mean, I think every day I meet new entrepreneurs who are looking for answers like these, looking for inspiration like this. And, to my guests, to the people who've been on the show, God bless you. You're wonderful. I love the fact that you were willing to talk to me. Thank you so much for that time. And to the people who listen to this show, the audience that's listening, I want you to know that you're such a powerful person. There's so much you're going to do so much. I mean, you're going to be on my show someday. Okay. So go out there and build something, and just keep building it, and keep talking to people about what you do, and, keep building that audience. It's amazing. It's fantastic. It's beautiful. And you are more than qualified to do it. So, and if you need help, come talk to me at wordslingerpodcast.com. You can get coaching. You can get, you can get free advice. I got plenty of blog posts you can read through. There's some PDFs you can download. And if you're looking for a break, read some fiction while you're there. So go check that out. Thanks a lot. And call me with any questions you have at 281 Sorry, we'll start over because I had to swallow. 281-809-WORD. That's 281-809-9673. Call me with any questions you have, and I will happily play those in there and answer them for you. So take care of yourselves until next time. God bless, and I'll see you.
Word Slinger.